The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today. It is July 10th on a Friday. And your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams. Getting off as we always do with the weather. Showers around today with a high of 78 and a low of 64. And then back to the warmer stuff and sunnier stuff. Tomorrow, sunshine and less humid with a high of 82 and a low of 60. Sunday, mostly sunny with a high of 83 and a low of 62. Monday, partly sunny and warm with a high of 86, getting steamy again, and a low of 68. Tuesday, some sun, breezy and warm with a high of 87. How that differs from Thursday or Wednesday, which is partly sunny and very warm with a high of 87. I don't know how the difference is between 87 and warm and 87 and very warm, but there you are. And
humidity levels probably.
And Thursday, mostly sunny with a high of 81 and a low of 66. So the higher temperature through 3 p.m. yesterday, and that's when they cut things off for printing and so forth, 85, and the normal is 80. The low of 67 compares to a normal or average low of 63. The record was 98 degrees in 2020, and the record low 47 in 1963. Last year was 79 on this date, and high 79 and a low of 63. We're still, 7+ inches ahead on the precipitation year to date. There wasn't any yesterday. There was some in the evening, depending on where you were. You may have gotten more or less of it, but that doesn't count for the stats that they're able to print here. The sun rose today at 5:46, but it's pretty cloudy out there at the moment, and I don't think we're going to see much of it today. But it will set at 8:55 p.m. tonight. Let's see, the new moon is coming in a few days. So right now we have waning, what is this? A waning crescent, I guess, is what it amounts to at this point. Our national high yesterday in Needles, California, 110 degrees. And in Bridgeport, California, another part of the state, 33 was the national low.
And Needles is where Snoopy's brother lives.
Indeed. Bridgeport's up in the mountains, such as they are in California. Let's see, year-to-date, 26 and 35 inches of precipitation so far. The trivia question for today, how did the term the dog days of summer come about? And that's about the Dog Star Sirius. It rose with the sun, supposedly adding heat. I don't think it adds much, but
I don't know how a dog adds heat, but it apparently does that.
I guess.
So I will move on to a headline story for those of you who like to eat. It's the taste of Buffalo, but so much more. This is from Francesca Bond. I spent Sunday night at one of the most American restaurants to exist. There were so many televisions that they were basically wallpaper in an arcade. I ate the best chicken tenders on earth. That's a trademark, not my opinion. After, in the parking lot, the sunset blazed over 7 lanes of Niagara Falls Boulevard and bathed the plaza in golden light. All 4 stores in the plaza were a different version of TJ Maxx. It all seemed very American as we celebrated the nation's 250th birthday. It definitely felt very Buffalo. And it felt like the right place to think about this weekend when the Taste of Buffalo returns for its 43rd summer. If America zooms in on Buffalo this weekend, it will find a city celebrating food and culture in the most American way. Reactions when you tell someone you're going to the Taste of Buffalo range from, "I go every year," to, "Why would anyone spend all that money to eat standing up in the hot sun?" Well, here's a few reasons: curiosity, diversity, community support, a love of food, especially fried food. Have you ever had a bacon shark? It's a popular street food in the Caribbean island of Trinidad. Fried marinated shark, stuffed in fried bread. Stop by KT Caribbean Cuisine. Taste of Buffalo, booth 41 to try one. Oh, that's interesting. Or have you tried Vietnamese fried sweet rice with chicken? Milk and Tea, booth 26. Vegan soft serve ice cream, DA Taste, booth 37. At this festival, buffalo tastes like fried chicken and waffles from Niagara Falls restaurateur and Detective Raoul Parker. If it tastes like quintessentially American banana pudding made by Somali women who run an East Side dessert shop, it's a buffalo-shaped soft pretzel with loganberry cream cheese. It's potato salad, smash burgers, mac and cheese, and mozzarella sticks, Italian stuffed pepper risotto bites, Indian chicken biryani, Vietnamese banh mi, Dominican empanadas, Greek, Japanese, Thai, Filipino, Puerto Rican, Polish, Jamaican, Dutch, Mexican, Tex-Mex, barbecue, pizza, and wings. It's an apple pie eating contest and a Fleetwood Mac cover band, not necessarily in that order. Is it perfect? Not quite. It is often hot, sometimes rainy, and can be expensive. But the Taste of Buffalo has endured since 1984, convincing thousands of people to spend their valuable July weekends eating fried PBJs on a sun-drenched pavement. Fried PBJs? I'm going to go back to the Polish booth. For one, we like disagreeing and probably, to a lesser extent, agreeing. A food festival is entertainment like anything else. Each dish, like an athlete, is subject to analysis. Each food, like a movie, has the potential to stir up buried memories and associations. Debate is central to the Taste of Buffalo experience. Give me an opinion. Even better, give me an opinion that could change with new information. My Spanish chef friends stayed with me during last year's Taste of Buffalo. We ate. We debated. We agreed. Though who could ever disagree about Sweet Melody's delightful gelato? Two, we like seeing each other. In 2021, during a still pandemic summer, a half-size Taste of Buffalo fed thousands. In case it needed anything else against its favor, it also rained. Festival goers were interviewed by the news and remained in good spirits. "Yeah, it's just a nice gentle rain," said Pasquale Maggiore of Wheatfield. "It's very good to be back out," said vendor Mark Abeling and Sea People. "We take pictures of all the food," said Buffalo resident Kathy Olszewski in 2024. She's an annual attendee with her friend Dawn McCarthy. "We take pictures of us. It's a nice memory." And three, we like to taste. The Taste of Buffalo is a smorgasbord. You should eat from many angles. Should you choose to eat only dessert, you have at least 10 options. Make a game of answering questions. Which is better, mini donuts or mini pancakes? Visit booths 13, Sweet Minis, and 23, Dimples Pancakes, to compare. Does a soft pretzel taste better when it's shaped like a buffalo? Go eat a Pretzelo, trademarked, at booth U. I started this story at Tully's, never change Tully's, not because it will be at the Taste of Buffalo, because it won't, but it struck me as about as American as it gets. Then I thought more about what it means to be American. And is anything more American than a street festival on a summer day sampling a melting pot of diverse cuisines? It's called Taste of Buffalo. Taste of America would also work. So,
Yeah, well,
a lot of food there.
I didn't realize it was competing with the second weekend in July annual Macedonian Festival at the Church of St. Cyril and Methody on Lake Avenue in Blaisdell. But they have a wonderful, wonderful event there, and there's plenty of parking, and there's shelter from the rain if you need it. There's some nice dancing and such that you can watch. So if you're not going to get to the Taste of Buffalo and you want something good, I can easily recommend the Macedonian Festival. Meanwhile, A waste discovery in Niagara Falls spurs a call for action by the state. 2 Niagara County homeowners who were informed recently that their properties may be contaminated by radioactive materials are demanding that Governor Kathy Hochul designate their entire neighborhood a hazardous waste site. They also say the state should pay to relocate their families. "I'm terrified," said Lexi Hawk, a homeowner who sent a letter to Hochul this week. Hawk was one of 120 Niagara County property owners who received a letter from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in the spring, informing them they may have radioactive materials in their yards. "I have a 3-year-old daughter. I have a dog," Hawk continued. "My fiancé and his brother built my daughter a swing set down in the woods with their bare hands. We've had so many parties around this bonfire. Did I expose people to things I didn't know I was exposing them to?" The letter was sent to Hochul by Hawk, her fiancé, Trevor Bradley, and their neighbors, Carolyn and John Johnson. The families live in a neighborhood just south of a Reservoir State Park in Niagara Falls. The Johnsons also received a letter in May from the DEC and EPA alerting them that there may be radioactive materials on their property. Carolyn Johnson previously told the news that employees from the agencies told her the levels of radiation in her front and side yards were extremely high. Hawk said representatives from the agencies warned her not to enter parts of her yard due to the high radiation levels found. The levels were reportedly found during aerial surveys conducted beginning in October 2023 and vehicle-based surveys that began last summer. Despite such warnings to the residents, neither agency has disclosed the results of the previous radiation surveys to Hawk, Bradley, or the Johnsons, according to the families. "It's frustrating," Hawk said. "All this uncertainty is not a good feeling." In the letter to Hochul, Hawk and Johnson vent their frustrations at the process undertaken to alert the homeowners of the radioactive materials in their yards. The radioactivity was discovered when these agencies, that's the DEC and EPA, conducted a flyover study more than 2 years ago, the letter said. "We want to emphasize this point. New York and the federal government waited 2 years before notifying us or requesting access to conduct additional testing. This delay is unacceptable." The homeowners requested a meeting with Hochul by Friday to discuss their concerns. They also requested her office send them copies of the results from the flyover and vehicle-based surveys by next Thursday. "It is inexcusable that we cannot get specific information about our properties, especially given the long-term harm that this radioactivity can cause," the letter said. The neighbors requested the state designate their neighborhood a state Superfund site. Through the Superfund program, the DEC identifies inactive hazardous waste sites and implements a cleanup or protection plan while ensuring the dumper is held responsible. The request carries particular weight in Niagara Falls, where the Love Canal disaster helped give rise to the nation's Superfund program. After toxic waste buried underneath that neighborhood forced evacuations and drew national attention in 1978, Congress created the Federal Superfund Law in 1980 to identify and clean up hazardous waste sites. Individual states soon followed suit with their own hazardous waste cleanup funds. Love Canal sits less than 5 miles from the neighborhood where Hawk, Bradley, and the Johnsons are now demanding state intervention. Additionally, in the letter, the neighbors asked Hochul to relocate all 120 property owners who received the letters regarding the radioactive materials to homes that are comparable to our existing ones. They also requested the state provide whatever information is needed or necessary for the federal government to be involved, the letter said. Hawk said she's hopeful the governor will respond to their letter. Buffalo was her hometown, and she says that she cares about us and that she's willing to fight for all of us, Hawk said. This is her chance to prove it.
Good luck. Now from Aaron Besker, a story. A woman behind vandalism spree avoids jail time. A Buffalo woman who drove 6 children to vandalize a terrace at Delaware Park restaurant in the fall was sentenced Thursday to 3 years of probation, the Erie County District Attorney's Office said. Buffalo City Court Judge Rebecca Town issued the sentence to Stacy M. Matthews, 40, who pleaded guilty in May to 2 misdemeanors tied to the October crimes. Matthews faced a maximum sentence of 364 days in jail. 6 children between ages 10 and 16 caused about $2,000 in damage to windows, outdoor furniture at the restaurant in Delaware Park's historic Marcy Casino early in the morning of October 16th of 2025, prosecutors said. The 6 juveniles were under Matthews' care at the time. Matthews pleaded guilty May 8th to child endangerment and fourth-degree criminal mischief. The terrace at Delaware Park was vandalized 6 times within 2 weeks in October, co-owner Jason Davison told the Buffalo News at the time. Buffalo police initially charged Matthews in connection to 4 of those incidents. She had faced charges of second and third degree criminal mischief, both felonies, and misdemeanor counts of endangering the welfare of a child, criminal tampering, and criminal nuisance. As a condition of her plea, Matthews signed a confession of judgment saying she would pay $2,000 in restitution, prosecutors previously said. But town did not grant the restitution order, a spokeswoman for the district attorney's office said Thursday. A judge on Thursday also issued a stay-away order of protection for the victim against Matthews, which bars Matthews from having contact with the victim for 5 years. Oh, well.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. It's 16 minutes past the hour. Time to turn to the editorial page. The editorials from our local writers had a headline, Bless the Child. So, news that 4 facilities in Western New York are closing in on $13.2 million to modernize and expand their child care programs is most welcome. As reported by the News with Robert Gavin, Governor Kathy Hochul made the announcement last Friday. Local recipients, all doing essential work in this space, were among 37 projects across the state, awarded more than $106 million through the state's Child Care Capital Construction Funding Program. It is known as 4CFP, to allow the facilities to increase the availability of licensed child care. The Western New York projects include Mercy Hospital of Buffalo, about $4.9 million, the Chautauqua Lake Child Care Center, $4.7 million, Jamestown Community College, $2.9 million, and the Hispanic Heritage Council of Western New York, not quite $700,000. The several millions to expand child care in Western New York comes from money approved in last year's state budget and previous child care programs. The money will help create new capacity or expand existing space for licensed, registered, and permitted child care programs. The programs can spend it to design, renovate, construct, reconstruct, and purchase equipment to increase their care, officials said. Even better, the programs can direct the funds as they see fit to design, renovate, construct, reconstruct, and purchase equipment to increase their care, according to officials. The programs have a deadline, that is, completion of all required reviews within 12 months of receiving the money. The programs must fully complete their projects by December 31st, 2029. The governor said it best when she talked about access to affordable, high-quality child care for children, families, and New York's economy.
And big arrival. Speaking of children, check out an adorable baby girl, Yamaya India Soto Rodriguez, who entered this world on June 9th. News staff reporter Emma Kresge's story for The Bright Side reveals what makes baby Yamaya unique: her birth weight. Dorisha Rodriguez talked about having a feeling that the baby she was carrying was a bit larger than normal. "I was never going to have a regular-sized kid," said Rodriguez, who is 5 feet 11 inches tall. Rodriguez and Dominic Soto of West Seneca were thrilled that Yamaya was born healthy, but she came in a bit bigger than other babies at 14 pounds, 1 ounce. Wow. Ouch. And she was delivered via C-section at Golisano Children's Hospital of Buffalo, perhaps to her mother's ultimate relief. The baby changed plans from a natural birth when, during the delivery, she moved her arm above her head and grabbed a medical provider's finger when Rodriguez was 5 centimeters dilated, as Kresge wrote. Yamaya's mom opted for a C-section as a safest option, but it was clear that the baby was calling the shots, at least in the delivery room, when she stole the hearts of the medical staff who couldn't stop talking about her size. Turns out it's rare, according to a spokesperson at Golisano Children's Hospital. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention states that the average birth weight of babies in the U.S. is around 7 pounds. The number of babies born in the U.S. each year who weigh more than 11 pounds represents only about 0.1% of all births. The MI is in the 99.9th percentile. It was heartwarming to break from business as usual to read about this unique baby who made such a grand entrance at Golisano Children's Hospital. Wow, that's big.
Yeah, I'll say. Turning to the political cartoons, Adam Ziglis today has one entitled Crowd Sizes. And it shows a picture of the Capitol building and the lawn in front of it. America 250, it says. There's a Ferris wheel about halfway through the mall, and a smattering of people here and there. And then
Hardly any.
Welcome to Yosemite. And it has this massive crowd trying to get into the park. A couple of those voice bubbles showing words they're not willing to print. Skeletons and @ signs and hashtags, whatever. And a voice bubble saying, "Did you hear Trump eliminated the reservation system?" Yeah, well, been to Yosemite and spent a couple nights there each of 3 times, and yeah, you want to have a reservation to go there.
Yeah.
And on the other page, Tom Stiglich, a well-known contributor to this page from the Creators Syndicate, has what looks like a porta potty, and the sign on the door says Graham Plattner for U.S. Senate, and hanging on the latch to the door is a sign says out of business. And of course, Graham Plattner famously was running for Senate, U.S. Senate in Maine, and allegations of sexual improprieties caused him to withdraw from the race. So that takes care of that.
Well, I think we have a president that did that. Didn't stop them.
No.
Well. From Carl P. Lubsdorff. After 50 years, a new presidential scandal rears its head. Every 50 years, it's been traditional for the United States to celebrate the survival of its democracy for another half century, just as many Americans did last week. Unfortunately, every 50 years or so has also seen its national government become enmeshed in political scandal. It's happening again, and the current ones may prove to be the worst. In the 1870s, during the Ulysses Grant administration's credit mobilier scandal, several top officials were accused of taking bribes from Union Pacific Railroad and the Credit Mobilier Finance Company for rulings that helped build the first transcontinental railroad. They included Vice President Schuyler Colfax and several congressmen, but though their reputations were tarnished, no charges were ever filed. In the 1920s, during Warren Harding's administration, Interior Secretary Abbott Fall secretly leased government-owned petroleum reserves in Teapot Dome, Wyoming, and Elk Hills, California, to private oil executives for thousands of dollars in bribes. Fall, convicted of taking bribes, became the first cabinet member in prison for acts in office. In the 1970s, the Watergate scandal toppled Richard Nixon's presidency after disclosures he directed the FBI and the CIA to cover up White House involvement in his campaign's break-in of the Democratic Party's Watergate office building headquarters and the subsequent payoffs to the burglars.
Unlike Credit Mobilier and Teapot Dome, Nixon was directly implicated and was forced to resign in the face of certain impeachment and conviction. Several other top officials, including 3 cabinet members, were among 48 people convicted of crimes. Since the current administration began, President Trump and his family members have made vast sums of money, some resulting from his administration's actions, although it's unclear if any crimes were committed. Some top officials were appointed only after making large contributions to Trump campaign groups. And the companies of big contributors, many solicited for large amounts after the election, gained high-level administration access and favorable rulings. As Trump likes to say when describing various aspects of his administration, nobody's ever seen anything like it. His recently released 927-page 2025 financial disclosure showed Trump earned $2.2 billion last year, compared with $600 million in 2024. His investment advisors made more than 21,000 securities trades from 8 separate accounts, acquiring large holdings in about 1,600 companies, including many directly involved in administration deals, ABC News reported. At the very least, the extent of these dealings is unprecedented. On the day the White House unveiled its so-called AI action plan, ABC said they purchased between $1 million and $5 million each in 6 companies: Amazon, Apple, Broadcom, Meta, Microsoft, and NVIDIA, whose AI work was directly impacted by the policy seeking to reduce federal regulation of the AI industry. Other Trump stock deals paralleled his public statements during his on-again, off-again imposition of import tariffs in April 2025. Stock prices slumped sharply after Trump unveiled the tariffs. About a week later, he posted on Truth Social, "This is a great time to buy DJT." Later the same day, he announced he would pause the tariffs, sending stock prices soaring up. A day earlier, CNBC reported Trump's advisors bought stock in 327 separate companies, enabling them to benefit when his tariff pause sent the market surging upward. Trump has said he is not involved in stock trading by his trustees. "You know why I'm profiting," he said, "because the stock market's going up. Everybody's profiting." The stock market is not the only place he cashed in. According to the New York Times, his financial disclosure showed that Trump and his sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, made huge profits at the expense of their investors via their cryptocurrency firm, World Liberty Financial, and through Trump Media. Of his $2.2 billion in income, some $1.4 billion came from his profits from cryptocurrency dealings, like sales to the president's enthusiasts of the dollar Trump coins, whose value plummeted after their sales from nearly $75 per coin before his inauguration to about $1.70.
Oh boy. His World Liberty earnings included $263 million from secretly selling a share to United Arab Emirates, whatever. World Liberty Financial was formed on the eve of Trump's 2024 re-election by Don Jr., Eric, and the son of Middle East negotiator Steve Witkoff. The Times said Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who was conducting negotiations on Gaza and Iran with Witkoff, was trying to raise $5 billion for his investment firm from Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. MS Now reported that Eric and Don Trump Jr. have investments in 10 companies that received $3.7 billion in Pentagon contracts. In one instance, according to ProPublica, Presidential advisor Peter Navarro intervened to ensure a $620 million Pentagon loan to a small North Carolina firm in which Don Jr. is an investor. Other administration figures are also benefiting financially from government activities. According to the Times, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick negotiated a deal with Kazakhstan, giving American company Kaz Resources access to a rare tungsten supplies in the former Soviet Republic. It is said Lutnick and Trump's sons are involved in a project which received $1.6 billion in federal financing. The president and vice president are exempt from conflict of interest rules that limit other executive branch officials, but in his first term, Trump and his family sought to avoid any potentially questionable business deals. Asked by the Times why he acted differently this time, Trump replied, "Because I found out that nobody cared. But if the Democrats regain the House in November, he may find that there's a lot of interest." Well, so we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. Now you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and at 29 minutes past the hour, I'm going to turn to some local opinions. This one from Susan Gianniotis of Orchard Park. Empty nest leaves more room for friends. That's her view. When my children left home, the transition wasn't easy. Like many empty nesters, I threw myself into work, picked up a few hobbies, and gradually learned to live alone. I also discovered how much richer my friendships could become. Some stretch across decades. Others arrived much later. Some are there for life's biggest moments, while others quietly make ordinary days better. Together, they filled spaces I never expected them to. When I decided to redecorate my living room, my friend Lynn didn't just offer advice. She helped me choose colors, spent hours painting, designed a gallery wall, and then hung it. Whether it's dinner around the fire, Shakespeare in the park, or a visit to the AKG, she has both a calming presence and a way of making life feel like an adventure. Years ago, Joanne and I were the mothers taking our children to teddy bear picnics, hayrides, and amusement parks. Today, she's the one calling to ask if I want to take a February cruise, grab rush tickets to Shays, or use an extra Sabres ticket. Together, we bought unlimited movie passes, broadening my horizons beyond my usual Marvel movies. She spent months trying to convince me that spin class was a good idea. 45 minutes on that bike felt like a month. Carrie and I lived across the street from each other for years, exchanging little more than comments about the weather and recycling week. Our friendships began during a snowstorm when I helped clear her driveway. She says she knew we'd be friends after I fell backward into a snowbank and slid downhill like a penguin. Since then, she has walked my dog when work kept me late, shared countless neighborhood walks, traded books and leftovers, and became a yoga partner. Olivia's classroom is next door to mine. We eat lunch together, stop by each other's classrooms throughout the day, and still enjoy spending time together after work. We thrift, craft, and laugh a lot. A trip to Rome sparked a shared love of travel, and we're already debating our next destination. She votes for Scotland and Ireland. I'm campaigning for Japan. We may end up back in Italy because even after 2 trips together, there's still so much we want to see and do. For 25 years, I've belonged to the same book club. The books brought us together, but our lives kept us there. We have celebrated milestones, supported one another through loss, and found friendship that has added depth and richness to every stage of life. Then there's Wendy, my oldest friend. We grew up just a few houses apart. Her parents invited me on camping trips every summer, and her house felt like a second home. We have shared childhood, adolescence, marriage, parenthood, and life's unexpected twists. Some friendships become woven into your history in a way that can't be replaced. They know not only who you are, but how you became that person. The empty nest left an empty space that made room for friendships. There is space for new friendships while allowing others to deepen, evolve, and sometimes begin again. They have reminded me that family isn't the only place we find belonging, laughter, and love. Sometimes those gifts come carrying a paintbrush, a yoga mat, or an extra ticket. Speaking of tickets, you don't need one to go see the Shakespeare in Delaware Park play that's closing this coming Sunday, Pericles, Prince of Tyre.
Sounds like a very busy life.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, from another voice, subject is science. Sarah E.J. Bowman, a Ph.D., is an associate professor of biochemistry at the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences at the University at Buffalo, and she says federal changes to grants will devastate research. As a scientist and educator, I care deeply about my local community college, and therefore I'm writing to bring awareness to the community about drastic changes that the White House Office of Management and Budget have proposed. The proposed revision of 2 CFR Part 200 would make sweeping changes to all grants from the federal government. In the United States, federal support of science has led to amazing discoveries that directly impact people's lives and health. Federal support of science is also a major economic dollar. Every dollar of research funded by the National Institutes of Health generates $2.56 every dollar which funded by the National Institute of Health generates $2.56 in additional economic activities in the community. Got that right. In Erie County, $123.5 million in federal funding in 2025 resulted in corresponding economic impact of $298.3 million and about 1,000 jobs. The world-leading science in the U.S. has been built on a sound foundation. Federal grant applications are reviewed by independent experts who provide careful peer review. If the new proposed OMB rule is implemented, every federal grant would instead be subject to review by political appointees. The proposed changes would allow for rejections of any grant before it's awarded. Active grants could be terminated any time with no right to appeal. The proposed changes could impact the grants that provide funding to discover new drugs to treat cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and many other diseases, and could stop clinical trials mid-study. These changes could also stop clinical trials at Roswell Park and rescind grant funding to the University at Buffalo. Well, you'll have an opportunity to register a comment on these proposed changes, but only until July 13th. Comments must be submitted at regulations.gov, docket OMB 2026-0034. Elizabeth Ginexi, that's Ginexi, PhD, former NIH Senior Program Director, has put together a 2-page document to assist with specifics about how to register a comment at https://tinyurl.com/Y8MRRNWD. I urge my community in Buffalo and New York to comment and to write or call your congressional representatives and senators to oppose these changes. And if you would like all that information again, please call us at 716-821-5555 to get that information. It's important.
Indeed. And Nick will have that information for you.
No.
Moving on, we're going to turn to the business pages and see what we can find there. There's some interesting stuff. First of all, we have premium gas is pricey, but demand is growing. High-octane blends have become pure profit for stations. The price displayed above that third button on the gas pump averaged more than $5.40 for several days this spring. American drivers still couldn't get enough. Premium gas now costs around $1 a gallon more than regular, way more than the price premium that drivers paid for the high-octane stuff a decade ago. Yet demand for premium gas is up. That makes some sense. More new vehicles recommend or require premium-grade octane levels of at least 91. But many drivers falsely believe high-octane gas offers a kind of treat for their engines. Note the word falsely believe. High gas prices during the Iran war never really changed Americans' driving habits. That's particularly true for owners of higher-end SUVs, trucks, and luxury cars that actually need a higher octane level. Whatever the reason for the rise in demand, gas stations have turbocharged price hikes for premium gas over the last couple of decades, creating a profit engine for station owners. Historically, high-octane gas has cost about 20 cents a gallon more than regular, barely budging for decades. But that difference started to gradually widen around 2005 before taking off like a rocket a decade later. That gap grew to 40 cents in 2015, 60 cents in 2018, and 80 cents in 2022, according to the Energy Information Administration. It's just under $1 difference today. Higher refining costs are partially to blame. In the mid-2000s, 2 federal regulations went into effect that required automakers to lower vehicles' sulfur output, which also reduces octane. To preserve premium's higher octane levels, refineries add cleaner burning, higher octane, and more expensive ethanol to their blends. But the ethanol cost was marginal, not nearly as much as the surge in retail prices would have you believe. Although the difference between premium and regular gas widened by 70 cents a gallon over the past 2 decades, the gap in wholesale prices rose by just 20 cents a gallon since 2007, according to the EIA. In other words, premium gas has become pure profit for gas stations. Who do you think is making the money? It's the service stations, said Andy Lippo, president of Lippo Oil Associates. That hasn't kept customers away. Premium made up around 13% of overall gas sales last year, up from 9% in 2013, according to Lippo. That's in part because the number of new cars with engines that require or recommend premium has surged. By 2018, they eclipsed the number of new car models that recommend regular gas, according to the Department of Energy. That increased need led stations to charge more for premium, a cost that car owners have proven willing to pay. Vehicles that need premium gas are typically expensive ones, luxury cars, and large trucks or SUVs. The people who need to use premium aren't the ones who are concerned about paying for it, said Tom Kloza, an independent oil analyst. But new cars aren't the only reason people buy premium gas. Some drivers buy it even when their cars don't need it. Octane is just a measure of fuel stability and resistance to knocking. It doesn't make your car go faster. The efficiency comes from the engine mechanics itself, not a higher octane level. Resistance to knocking for turbocharged engines that need it can make an engine more efficient adding increased ignition timing, longer burn cycles, greater energy extraction from the air-fuel charge in the cylinder, and higher torque and horsepower, according to the AAA. But premium gas offered zero benefits to cars built for regular 87-octane gas, AAA found in a 2016 study. Those engines don't need the higher octane level because they don't suffer from the same knocking concerns. Even cars that do benefit from premium gas probably don't need anything above 91 octane. Few cars require it. So 93 or 94 isn't getting you any increased performance.
Yeah, don't waste money on stuff you don't need.
Indeed.
I used to work on engines. If you don't need it, don't do it. Well, Micron plans $250 billion investment in U.S. This is from Reuters. Micron Technology said on Thursday it plans to invest more than $250 billion in the U.S. through 2035, driven by surging demand for memory chips in the AI era and President Trump's push to bolster domestic chip production. The new investment plan represents a jump from the $200 billion that Micron announced last June, which was already increased by $30 billion from its original spending plans. Shares of Micron were up by 7% in midday trading, adding more than a 200% surge in value so far this year. Domestic chip manufacturing has been a key priority for the Trump administration as the U.S. seeks to reduce dependence on foreign semiconductor production, boost economic output, and maintain its lead in the global AI race. At the center of Micron's expanded investment plans is a semiconductor campus in Syracuse. The project is running more than 1 quarter ahead of schedule, when the company said on Thursday. The New York facility, together with the company's expansion of its Idaho and Virginia operations, is expected to create more than 90,000 jobs in the country, Micron said. As part of the investment, Micron said it would spend $3 billion on strengthening the U.S. semiconductor supply chain, of which $500 million will be used to fund advancements in Global Wafers' 300-millimeter raw silicon wafer manufacturing facility in Sherman, Texas. The two companies will also enter into a 10-year supply agreement that will provide significant raw silicon wafer capacity to support Micron's long-term manufacturing plans. Micron, a key supplier for NVIDIA's AI chipsets, has seen demand for its chips surge due to the AI boom. Last month, the company said its customers across the data center, consumer, and automotive markets had locked in supplies of memory chips worth $22 billion. Oh, well.
As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. Again, that's 716-821-5555. I'll leave about a half a dozen names here to read. Barlow Elaine, they called her Gert, from Tonawanda, died at 94 last week. Braun, Donald George. He was from Buffalo, but he died last November at 73 years of age, and it doesn't say, 83 years of age. It doesn't say why they took so long to report this. Fager, Thomas E., 83-year-old from Buffalo. Fager, Thomas E. Lepine, I think. Elaine Elizabeth Nee Murphy, a 60-year-old from Lancaster, New York. Murphy, Laura Johnson, 76-year-old, passed away back in March. Again, it doesn't say why it took so long to report this, but she was living in Dallas. Graduated from Riverside High School, just a few years behind me. And Segarra Joseph W., at age 64, of Grand Island, passed away earlier this week, whatever. A couple of obituaries. Both female singers. Bonnie Tyler, the husky-voiced powerhouse vocalist who performed memorable and dramatic pop rock songs, including Total Eclipse of the Heart in the 1980s, has died. A Welsh singer, close to my heart. Died in a Portugal hospital on Wednesday night, according to a statement on her official website and social media accounts Thursday morning. Prior to her death, Tyler was hospitalized and underwent emergency intestinal surgery in May. She was placed in an induced coma to aid her recovery, which she awoke from in mid-June but remained very unwell, her family said at the time. A 3-time Grammy Award nominee, she first rose to fame in the 1970s. She was known for her raspy vocals, offering listeners an edgier sound that also melded pop and rock. Tyler released 18 studio albums, beginning with her debut, The World Starts Tonight, in 1977, but she solidified her place in music with collaborations with songwriter-producer Jim Steinman, a hitmaker who worked with Meatloaf, Air Supply, and Celine Dion. She contributed her powerful voice to Steinman's dramatic Total Eclipse of the Heart, which was released in 1983 out of her 5th studio album, Faster Than the Speed of Night. That song climbed music charts and earned Tyler a Grammy nomination for Female Pop Vocal Performance in 1984. She continued releasing music throughout the 90s and early aughts. Amid the process of creating her 16th album, Rocks and Honey, Tyler joined the Eurovision Song Contest in 2013 to represent the United Kingdom. Though she finished 19th, she said at the time she was glad she competed because it was an incredible experience. In addition to her albums, Tyler embarked on several tours, most recently her Between the Earth and the Stars live tour in 2019. Her most recent release was Together in July 2025, produced by electronic music artist David Guetta, which samples the chorus of Total Eclipse of the Heart. Tyler married former Olympic martial artist Robert Sullivan in 1973. Bonnie Tyler, dead at 75.
Yeah.
And Lauren Bennett, the British singer who told millennials to put your hands up in LMFAO's mega-hit party rock anthem, and a member of pop group GRL, has died. She was 37. GRL members Emmeline Estrada and Natasha Slayton and Paula Van Oppen announced Bennett's death on Monday via social media. It is with great sadness that we share the passing of our beloved Lauren, this statement read. Our hearts are broken, and we cannot begin to express how much she meant to us. We will forever cherish the love, laughter, and countless memories she gave us. Her beautiful spirit touched so many lives, and she will be missed and forever loved. But rest peacefully, sweet Lauren. You will always be in our hearts. Bennett's cause of death has not been revealed.
Yeah.
Later on in life, this is a longtime friend and music producer Josh Stevens, who co-wrote and engineered the album Sorry for Party Rocking, posed a tribute to Bennett on Monday, writing, "My friend Lauren Bennett, we will deeply miss you. I was lucky enough to witness you change the world." Later on in life, our children had the same birthday. I remember us texting each other while you were in labor, and my wife was in labor on the same day, same time, both in the hospital. We were laughing, and if somewhat seemed calming to know each other was going through this at the same time. We will very much miss you. Lauren Bennett, dead at 37. One more time, if you need any information, any additional information on any of those names we heard, 716-821-5555 is the number to call.
And now we will move on to some entertainment with the Royal Stars with Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Friday, July 10th of 2026. You have an analytical, practical mind. You're determined, observant, and detail-oriented. Because this is the last of a 9-year cycle, take inventory. And the stars show the kind of day you'll have: 5 being dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. And we're looking to be pretty high in the star chart today. Aries is 3 stars. Financial discussions will go well today. Do your homework. Toss ideas back and forth with someone. Tonight, an interesting conversation. They don't say who that someone should be. Taurus is 4 stars. This is a good day to explore wrapping up old matters and loose ends, because things will tend to go in your favor for most of today and tonight. Maintain your belongings. Gemini is 4 stars. You want to keep a low profile today, which is why you might choose to work alone. Nevertheless, with fiery Mars in your sign, you're still ready to defend your best interests. As in, hey, I'm more than just a pretty face. And tonight, you win. Cancer is 3 stars. This is a perfect day to schmooze, shoot the breeze, exchange ideas, gather data, but wait until tomorrow to act. Enjoy relaxing with others tonight. And then tonight, enjoy privacy. And Leo is 3 stars. You're high vis today, which means people notice you more than usual. Chat with others and do your homework, but commit to do nothing. Tonight, be friendly. Virgo is 3 stars. You need a change of scenery. Do something different today because you're restless for adventure. Enjoy socializing and talking to people from different backgrounds. Tonight, you're admired. Libra is 4 stars. Today you might be involved in discussions about inheritance, share property, taxes, or debt. Tonight, explore. Scorpio, 3 stars. Be cooperative with others today because the moon is opposite your sign. You will have to go along to get along. Get your data, but wait till tomorrow to commit. Tonight, check your finances. Sagittarius is 3 stars. You're charming to everyone right now because Venus is at the top of your chart. Meanwhile, today you might have to work for the benefit of someone else. Tonight, cooperate. Capricorn, 3 stars. Today's a playful day. Welcome any chance to make art or explore your creative talents. This is also a lovely day to schmooze. Tonight, work. Aquarius, 3 stars. Quiet time at home today will please you. You might wrap up loose ends. Family discussions about old matters might occur. And tonight, socialize. And finally, Pisces is 4 stars. You have a strong desire to share your ideas with someone today. You have something to say. This is actually a creative social day, and tonight, relax. So there you have the stars if you're so inclined to follow that. But moving on to today in history. In 1890, Wyoming joined the Union as the 44th state after U.S. President Benjamin Harrison signed its statehood bill. And then in 1893, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, a black American surgeon, performed the first successful open heart surgery in the United States on James Cornish at Chicago's Providence Hospital and Training School for Nurses, which he founded, and it was the nation's first black-owned operated hospital. In 1925, the famous or infamous Scopes monkey trial began in Dayton, Tennessee, with jury selection. John Thomas Scopes, a high school science teacher, was accused of breaking Tennessee state law by teaching evolution. How things change. 1940, the Battle of Britain began as German forces bombed shipping convoys in the English Channel, attacking its ports and radar stations. In 1962, the Telstar 1, designed and developed by AT&T, was launched by NASA. It was the world's first active communication satellite, able to transmit live television signals and telephone conversations between the United States and France. And in 1985, French Secret Service agents sunk a Greenpeace ship called Rainbow Warrior with 2 underwater bombs while it was docked at the port of Auckland, New Zealand. France initially denied its involvement, but was later forced to apologize and pay restitution. So it's been an interesting newsy day.
An interesting newsy day indeed. Now we have some time left in this hour, and I'm going to use it to grab a little bit of the article that starts on the front page, and I'll just summarize. Here are the Democrats lining up for potential 28 White House bids, 2028. Democratic contenders are already jockeying for 2028 presidential run, signaling an open race with no clear party standard bearer in the fight to succeed President Trump. No one has formally entered the race for the November 2028, but maneuvering has begun. Well, here are those generating the most buzz, grouped by category and listed alphabetically. Governors. Several Democratic governors are seen as potential contenders. Andy Beshear, the Kentucky governor, became chair of the Democratic Governors Association this year, giving him a platform to promote his record in a heavily Republican state. He has been elected twice in a state Trump won by over 30 percentage points in 2024. But he's not well known outside Kentucky. Gavin Newsom, California's governor, released a memoir in February and has also visited South Carolina and New Hampshire. He has over $4 million in his political action committee. He told CBS News Sunday Morning in October after the midterm elections he would give serious thought to running in 2028. J.B. Pritzker, the Illinois governor, has traveled to likely early primary states, including New Hampshire and Nevada, and has not ruled out a presidential bid. Josh Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor, released a memoir this year and has about $38 million cash on hand for his gubernatorial reelection bid this November. When asked about a potential presidential bid in April, Shapiro said Democrats will need to have a conversation about the country's direction after the midterm elections this November, and I'll be a part of that conversation. Okay, a couple of past national candidates. Two Democrats with prior presidential runs. Pete Buttigieg, who was unsuccessful in his 2020 bid to become the Democratic nominee, was transportation secretary under former President Joe Biden, and he has over $5 million in his political action committee, and has traveled to the potentially early nominating states of Iowa and New Hampshire. And Kamala Harris, the former vice president, has been one of the most explicit about running again after losing to Trump in 2024. I'm thinking about it, she said in April. Among her strengths, she has high name recognition and is polling well among Democratic voters in the early 2028 surveys. But she's run twice already, and candidates that have previously run and lost are often viewed skeptically by primary voters. And a couple of Democratic U.S. senators have fueled 2028 speculation, though only one, Mark Kelly of Arizona, has drawn sustained early scrutiny. The others include Arizona's Ruben Gallego, Connecticut's Chris Murphy, Georgia's John Ossoff, and New Jersey's Cory Booker. Mark Kelly, a retired NASA astronaut and U.S. Navy pilot, has the largest cash stockpile of any potential 2028 Democratic candidates, over $22 million in his principal congressional committee, according to FEC filings. That doesn't sound like the highest cash stockpile to me. Josh Shapiro has $38 million. But whatever. Amongst the progressives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the U.S. representative from New York, who identifies as a democratic socialist, is one of the country's most prominent progressives and is seen as the likeliest heir to the movement that Senator Bernie Sanders built through his two presidential campaigns. When asked in a May interview about her presidential ambitions, she did not rule out running. "My ambition is to change this country," she said. And one other, Rahm Emanuel, who served as a U.S. representative from 2003 to 2009, White House Chief of Staff to President Barack Obama, Mayor of Chicago from 2011 to 19, and Ambassador to Japan from 2022 to 2025. And when he said he'd considering a presidential run, and has since argued in frequent media appearances that the party's moderate wing needs renewal. We'll see. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features for from the Buffalo News for today, the 10th of July, on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Don Williams.
J.J. Patek, and we'll move on to local news. Priest remains held on charges tied to child pornography. This is from Patrick LeCamp. The Diocese of Buffalo priest on administrative leave since 2019 will remain in custody till at least his detention hearing next week following his arrest Wednesday on charges of receiving and possessing child pornography. Law enforcement officials searched the Lackawanna home of Jeffrey Nowak, 46, and found videos on computer devices which include his child sexual abuse images of prepubescent victims, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Aaron Mangle at Nowak's initial court appearance Thursday in U.S. District Court. A search of his bedroom turned up a USB storage device found inside a Bible case, and it included several folders containing videos of child sexual abuse images, according to court records. The titles of folders on the storage device included Perverse, Pleasure, and Satanicals. Good grief. Prosecutors intend to press for Nowak's detention at next week's hearing, Mango said. The government believes the defendant is a danger to the community and a risk of flight if released, Mango told U.S. Magistrate Judge Michael J. Romer. During the search, Nowak made written and recorded statements which included admissions, Mango said in court. Nowak admitted using several online platforms for years, including Telegram and Zoom, to view child sexual image abuses, according to an affidavit from FBI Specialist Agent Kelly A. Milliman. Nowak said he frequently has accessed online platforms containing child sexual abuse images and was viewing images Wednesday morning as the FBI was arriving at his residence, according to the affidavit. Nowak told the FBI he has a sexual preference for boy children as young as toddlers, according to agent's affidavit. Defendants like Jeffrey Nowak go to great lengths, and in this case great distances, to hide their criminal behavior, U.S. Attorney Michael DiGiacomo said. Once in a position of trust, Nowak hid behind a keyboard and took part in the tragic exploitation of one of society's most vulnerable populations, our children. Nowak has now been exposed and can no longer hide and will be held accountable for his disgraceful behavior. A diocesan spokesman said Nowak was placed on permanent leave in 2019 and has not been permitted to function as a priest since then. We are not aware of any attempt by law enforcement officials to contact the diocese regarding these allegations, spokesman Gregory Tucker said. In fact, the diocese has just learned the allegations against him and will cooperate fully with any inquiry by law enforcement officials. The child pornography charge carries a mandatory minimum penalty of 5 years in prison and a maximum of 20 years. In late 2025, the FBI received a referral from law enforcement in Scotland about a Telegram group whose members participated in group Zoom calls during which members viewed and shared child sexual abuse images, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Investigators linked one of the participants to the username Pigboy666, which was later identified as Nowak. A Zoom call on September 7th of 2025 was accessed by 69 to 73 participants, including the Pigboy666 surname associated with Nowak, according to Milliman's affidavit. Nowak had been on authorities' radar before. In August of 2019, the Diocese of Buffalo priest was placed on administrative leave as an investigation was conducted following allegations of inappropriate contact with children and harassment of a seminarian. In December of 2019, the email address linked to Nowak was identified as an address that accessed a New Zealand cloud-based digital storage and file hosting website which contained photos and video files of sexually exploited children. And in May of 2021, the FBI conducted an investigation, executed a search warrant for the email address pigboybuffalo@gmail.com. But no child sexual abuse material was found, and the investigation was closed in July of 2023. The FBI's Buffalo office reopened the investigation into Nowak in March of 2026 after a tip late last year received by the FBI's Criminal Division's Violent Crimes Against Children and Human Trafficking Section, Child Exploitation Operational Unit, or CEOU, according to the criminal complaint. The search warrant executed on Wednesday allowed investigators to seize his electronic devices, including a cell phone, laptop, iPad, and USB storage device. FBI Buffalo's arrest demonstrated a simple truth, said Alan D. Davis II, a special agent in charge of the FBI's Buffalo field office. No one is beyond the reach of the FBI. The FBI, working with other law enforcement agencies, has the investigative capabilities to identify offenders, whether someone hides behind a screen name, encrypted applications, or an international platform. No vestment, no title, no profession, no position of trust places anyone above the law, Davis said at a news conference Thursday. When someone has earned the trust of a community and is accused of exploiting children, that betrayal cuts even deeper. I want to recognize that today's charges may be especially painful for members of the faith community and anyone who has placed their trust in the defendant. What then Bishop Richard Malone put Nowak on administrative leave. Malone said Nowak was never accused of engaging in sexual contact with an adult or a child, and that his diocese was not aware of any behavior on his part that threatened harm to the public. Malone said he put Nowak on leave after the priest refused to go for a behavioral assessment at St. Luke Institute. Malone was heard in a secretly recorded audio calling Nowak a sick puppy, a perpetrator, and dangerous. Malone later backed away from those descriptions, saying he used those terms casually and out of frustration with Nowak. Malone's critics said the audio recordings show that the bishop failed to remove Nowak promptly as pastor of Our Lady of Help of Christians in Cheektowaga, despite knowing the priest potentially could harm other people. That's hard.
It is. Interesting story for Bills fans. Mark Ebeling has been watching how property owners around the Buffalo Bills' new stadium have been trying to sell for big money. He and his family happen to own one of the most prominent properties in that area, at the corner of Big Tree and Abbott Roads, where longtime restaurant Danny's South sits. Ebeling said the opportunity to sell that property has now become too good to pass up. So, he is putting the Orchard Park and Buffalo Bills Stadium area restaurant and bar on the market. After 29 years of his family owning that location, they're listing it for $5.7 million. The more than 2-acre property offers more than 8,800 square feet of restaurant space and parking for more than 200 vehicles. There's also an outdoor patio with direct views of the new $2.2 billion Highmark Stadium. At a time when many restaurants have a short shelf life, often lasting several years at best, Danny's South, known best for its buffalo chicken wing soup, has remained open for nearly 3 decades. But with the new stadium opening in August, Ebeling realizes he now has an even more valuable property. Plus, he's 64 and can no longer put in the long hours necessary to own a restaurant. He said it will also be a lot easier for someone to open a restaurant in an established location rather than spending months or years seeking local approvals for a project and then building one from scratch. I have a turnkey operation here. I would suggest just remodeling the building to how you want and then do it, said Ebeling, whose family created Danny's South at the former Italian eatery Sal Franco's. We just wanted to wait for the right opportunity, and we know it's going to take people at least 2 years to build something out here, he added. The past 5 years have been big years for the establishment as the Bills have enjoyed success, and people have been flocking to the restaurant both on game days and in the off-season. The family also parks vehicles and RVs and buses for games and events, which creates substantial additional revenue. Ebeling said they host a lot of parties in the lot with out-of-town fans as well. We've also always had good years here, but it's been very crazy the last 5 years. Insane, Ebeling said. When the Bills are doing well, it makes the area pop. But Ebeling is one of 5 siblings, and they're all getting up in age, including his brother Richard, who is 67 and heavily involved, but who also wants to retire. Ebeling also has had Lyme disease for more than 30 years and is being treated for multiple sclerosis. That's not enough. He's been working 6 days a week for decades and cannot do it anymore, He said. Well, the family is holding on to the original Danny's location in Cheektowaga and will put all their resources into that establishment once the sale of the Orchard Park Eatery is completed. Ebeling also owns several houses in Cheektowaga close to that restaurant. We're just tired, and really I can't do what I was doing before, Ebeling said. To put some new blood, young blood, in a new restaurant here, something different, would be big. It really would. Dave also watched as several properties in the area have been sold of late for anyone from $500,000 to $2 million, including the former KK Mart convenience store parcel. Bill's Mafia House, the 8-acre mud lot, and an Abbott Road residence close to the corner of Big Tree and Abbott. Another restaurant and bar close to the stadium is also for sale. Kettles and the 4 acres of property it sits on at 3719 Abbott Road has been on the market for more than a year and is now listed at an asking price of $1.3 million. In all, there's about 10 properties for sale near the stadium, and many of them have been on the market for more than a year. Ebeling has now been in the restaurant business since the age of 8, when his father owned Grandma's Donuts on Seneca and Cazenovia Streets, followed by Grandma's Pancake House in West Seneca and downtown at Main and High Streets. He's been working consistently at his family restaurants for more than 4 decades since he was a teenager. They opened the first Danny's in Cheektowaga 35 years ago.
Danny's. Kind of a landmark place.
Kind of.
On another note, in Buffalo and next at manufacturing are Mike Petro, the company that prints retail and grocery flyers, announces closure. Employees of BNP Empowered Print were notified Thursday that the commercial printer is closing, according to a union representative. The company, founded in 1980 as Buffalo News Press, operates from a facility on Broadway. The International Union of Painters and Allied Trades represents more than 30 workers at the facility, said Wendy Schlosson, the union's business representative for the members of the company. The total size of the impacted workforce was not available. BNP Empowered Print officials and a lawyer representing the company did not return messages to the comment. BNP Empowered Print's core business is producing retail and grocery flyers for customers including Tops Markets and Value Home Centers. BNP Empowered Print also prints materials for the Buffalo News, but not its newspaper. BNP Empowered Print filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in February of 2025. Printing companies have faced challenges to their businesses in the digital age with reduced production of printed materials such as newspapers and circulars. Some other small printers in the region have also gone by the wayside. In an interview last year, BNP Empowered Print officials said the Trump administration's tariffs had added to the financial pressures. They said the business was facing higher costs for imported ink because of pigments it needed were sourced from other countries such as China and India, which were being subjected to higher tariffs. The most recent monthly operating report, filed with the bankruptcy court covering the period through the end of April, said the company had assets of $3.6 million and liabilities of nearly $8 million and 85 employees as of that date. By the end of April, the company was down to just over $55,000 in cash, a drop of nearly $100,000 from the beginning of April, according to recent court documents. The company had accrued more than $1.8 million in debt in the 14 months since the bankruptcy filing and had nearly $6.2 million in debt from before the filing, the court documents showed. Tops Markets said BNP Empowered Print had informed the supermarket chain that the printer will be winding down operations. Since they filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy in February of 2025, we've taken several collaborative steps to help, such as extending flexibility, adapting our partnership, and accelerating payments, Tops said. As a longtime Tops vendor, we appreciate the efforts of the company's leadership and workforce to serve their clients all the way through to their final days of operation. Tops said it's hiring for warehouse, logistics, and store jobs and has offered to coordinate a job fair for impacted employees of BNP Powered Print. The supermarket chain also identified a new vendor for its weekly advertisement and does not anticipate any disruptions with printing it. Sean Jacobson, the president and publisher of the Buffalo News, said BNP Powered Print officials had recently notified the newspaper that commercial printer was in dire financial condition. We were told that they had less than 2 weeks to stay open, that they needed additional funds and additional monies to keep the doors open, Jacobson said. The Buffalo News switched to a new vendor in order to continue printing the Hamburg Sun, Bargains, and Western New York Values without interruption, he said. We've been very solid partners with them, Jacobson said, referring to BNP Empowered Print. We've continued to pay our bills and stay on top of things, and we've been very supportive of BNP throughout this process. Ultimately, we had to make a decision to do what's best for the Buffalo News going forward. Sad to see another business go.
Really. Well, I'm going to summarize this article from Mackenzie Schumer, a news staff reporter. A state suit accuses DuPont and 3M of selling PFAS-laden products. New York Attorney General Letitia James sued 3M and DuPont yesterday accusing the companies and their subsidiaries of hiding the dangers of toxic forever chemicals for decades while selling products that reportedly contaminated water, soil, fish, and air across the state. Both companies have manufacturing facilities in western New York, though the lawsuit does not make specific accusations about the 3M plant in Tonawanda or the DuPont plant in Buffalo. A suit filed yesterday against 3M, DuPont, their subsidiaries, and parent companies accuses the manufacturers of obscuring the potential harms of its products containing, quoting again here, forever chemicals, while earning billions in profits from selling them. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, were manufactured by 3M beginning in the 1940s, and despite knowing since the 60s that the chemicals are toxic to humans and the environment, the companies continue to make the chemicals and put them into products widely sold throughout New York and the world, the lawsuit claimed. Due to the company's actions, New York's waterways, land, and people have been contaminated and poisoned by PFAS, the lawsuit claimed. As a result of defendants' conduct, those chemicals are in the water we drink, the soil that sustains our crops, the fish we catch, and the air we breathe, the lawsuit said. PFAS can cause damage to humans' immune systems, low birth weights, high uric acid, high cholesterol, kidney and testicular cancer, ulcerative colitis, liver damage, and pregnancy-induced hypertension, according to the lawsuit. Big companies like 3M and DuPont knowingly sold toxic products that threatened New Yorkers' health and polluted our environment for decades. It's time for them to pay for the damage they caused, what James said in a written statement. For far too long, our communities have unfairly shouldered the costs of protecting people from these toxic forever chemicals and cleaning up their contamination. I look forward to ensuring the companies responsible for the pollution are held accountable. The lawsuit asks for a judgment barring the companies from selling any consumer products containing harmful PFAS that doesn't first warn customers that it contains those things and the risks of exposure to such chemicals. The lawsuit also asks for any profits from the historical sale of PFAS-containing products to be disgorged and monetary compensation for the harm done to the state, its residents, and natural resources. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, I live right around the corner from the one plant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and it's now 17 minutes past the hour, and we're going to move on to hopefully better sports. Yay. We'll start out with a Bills story, tackling fullback. This is from Catherine Fitzgerald. It was December 15th when then offensive coordinator Joe Brady made his declaration, and in my opinion, Reggie Gilliam should be an all-pro fullback. Brady said the day after Week 15 Buffalo Bills win over the New England Patriots. A few months later, as free agency hit, Gilliam signed with the Patriots, their division rival, after spending his first 6 seasons in the league with the Bills. Gilliam played 235 offensive snaps last season, good for 21%, both career highs. He was also critical on special teams, playing 77% of special team snaps or higher ever since his rookie season. So his departure begs the question, what is the role of a fullback in Brady's evolving offense? The Bills currently roster 2 fullbacks, Ben Van Sumeren and Jackson Acker. Acker, a rookie undrafted free agent, missed almost all of OTAs and minicamp with an undisclosed injury. Van Sumeren, 26, is a former linebacker who signed with the Bills in April. But when roster cutdown day rolls around, a fullback is not guaranteed. It's such a unique position because there's a lot else that comes with it, Brady said in June. It's a roster spot. You don't ever want to have a fullback just to have a fullback. His line of thought goes back even further. When the Bills didn't take a fullback with any of their 10 draft picks, Brady emphasized that his general manager, Brandon Beane, was still keeping an eye out, but there was no desperation in the Bills' war room. I don't think we necessarily have to have a fullback, Brady said after the draft. We have such a unique tight end room, and you can do a lot of different things with those guys. That's part of our job as coaches, is to figure out what type of skill sets and the type of run schemes that you can get creative with without that stuff. There's still plenty of time for us to figure that out, but the time is slowly evaporating. Following up in June, Brady posited a few questions that will go into the calculus of whether or not the Bills keep a fullback on the active roster. Can they contribute on special teams, Brady said. What is the skill set with the defense they might be playing? So, it's certainly not a given that the Bills will use a fullback week in, week out under Brady as a head coach, but he has shown it as offensive coordinator that he can use the position to the team's advantage. Gilliam's work with running back James Cook showcased what a fullback can do. Cook's 1,621 rushing yards led the league, and Gilliam certainly gave him a hand. Look to Week 8 of last season, the 40-9 shellacking of the Carolina Panthers. Cook raced for a career-high 216 rushing yards, but it is informative to look at how he did so. Per Next Gen Stats, Cook had 141 rushing yards before contact, a testament to Gilliam and the offensive line. On Cook's 64-yard touchdown run, Gilliam played a huge role. I feel if I could go again, so I don't feel like I got hit, Cook said post-game with a glowing review. Gilliam signed a 3-year, $10.8 million contract with the Patriots, a check that is well-deserved. Brady now has to move forward, all with balancing the fact that a tight end plays a complex role in this offense. That makes the inclusion of special teams a bigger opportunity for would-be Bills fullback. Van Sumeren is embracing that challenge. Special teams has always been my calling card ever since I came into the league, Van Sumeren said. I even did it in college, so being a four-core guy is just part of me. I'm a playmaker. I came into the league as a linebacker, so I'm a tackler. I'm going to be productive in all four phases, and it's just what I do. That's what I'm expected to do. When it comes to the offense, there's still a learning curve with Brady's scheming. There's a lot of elements to what Van Sumeren said of the Buffalo's offense. It takes a lot of learning, a lot of memorization, but it's been good, and I'm coming along more each day. Brady knows that now is too early to make new declarations about fullbacks. Training camp will bring a new round of evaluations on Van Sumeren and Acker. A lot of that is the goalposts are going to move a little bit as we get pads on and we get some team run periods to see what these guys can and cannot do, Brady said. We're not going to just say, hey, we're going to have a fullback no matter what. So let's see what happens.
Interesting.
Let's just win.
Well, over the last 30, 40 years, the role of the fullback has, generally speaking, kind of diminished year by year.
Well, it looks like the last guy did pretty good for himself, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, long-term listeners probably are aware of my growing up as a baseball player. Toronto Blue Jays pitcher Max Scherzer was dissecting his outing and his season-long battle to stay healthy while talking to reporters Wednesday night at Salem Field when the topic changed to old friend Justin Verlander. So did his demeanor. Thinking about his longtime teammate brought a smile. Verlander, now 43, was named a Legends pick for next week's Major League Baseball All-Star Game in Philadelphia. That's Tuesday evening, by the way. And then announced his season with the Detroit Tigers will be his last one of a Major League Baseball career that dates to 2005. He's pitched for so long, and our careers have mirrored each other for so long, Scherzer, age 41, said after his injury rehab assignment for the Buffalo Bisons. I'm happy he's in a good spot. What a career he's had, and kudos to him for everything he's achieved. Verlander has 266 career wins and 3,554 strikeouts, 8th on the all-time strikeout list. Scherzer, meanwhile, is one of just 6 pitchers in Major League Baseball history to win the Cy Young Award in both the American and National Leagues. He has 222 career victories and 3,503 strikeouts, 11th all-time.
Well,
I lost my place, sorry. Found it. The way pitching is evolving, we're not going to see horses like them too much anymore. It feels like Verlander was our last chance to get a 300-game winner. And after the likely automatics during the 2030s of Verlander, Scherzer, and Clayton Kershaw, what starters are going to make the Hall of Fame? Names like Jacob deGrom and Garrett Cole, for instance, won't have the buildup of numbers like Scherzer and Verlander. They ran together as rotation mates in Detroit from 2010 to 2014, with Verlander winning an MVP in 2011, and the Tigers getting all the way to the World Series in 2012 before losing to San Francisco. That was quite a 1-2 punch at the top of a rotation. Rarely in recent times have two future Hall of Famers been in that spot. We had some great teams there in Detroit. You really kind of kick ourselves that we didn't win the whole thing, Scherzer said. We definitely had talent to be able to do that. Unfortunately, the ball didn't break our way, and we weren't able to get it done. But that doesn't take away from how we felt and how we played together. You know, Verlander is a key cog, obviously. I was a little bit younger, and he was on top of the game at that point. Getting to watch him go out there and dominate the game was fun to watch. A lot of great memories of him being with him in Detroit, and I will always remember that. With the All-Star break hitting after this weekend, Scherzer has nowhere to pitch on Monday except in the Florida Complex League for young players. He might have to do it just to stay on turn so he can be ready to get back to the Blue Jays' embattled rotation. The injuries are beyond frustrating, but look, I'm still in this fight, he said. I've got my body in the right position to come back out here in the second half, ready to hit the ground running and ready to help his team win. Help the team win. We can sit here all day and be frustrated, but that's not the way I live. I'm looking forward to getting back out there and trying to win some ball games. Feels like it could be Scherzer's last ride, just like Verlander, but he has yet to hit his final pitch limit. Blue Jays fans hope he has a few more left in him.
We'll see what goes on there.
Yep.
Wish him luck.
Indeed. He's earned it.
Yeah. Cease loses no-hitter, but still wins. This is from the Newswire Services. Dylan Cease came within 3 outs of becoming the first Toronto Blue Jay in 36 years to throw a no-hitter on Wednesday, striking out 11 in a 10-0 victory over the San Francisco Giants. Kazuma Okamoto capped the 5-run first inning with a grand slam, and center fielder Dalton Varsho prevented an extra base hit by the Giants' Bryce Eldridge with a leaping catch on a center field warning track in the 8th, each helping Cease's cause. The all-star right-hander retired the first 14 Giants he faced until losing his perfect game by walking Willie Adames with 2 outs in the 5th. Cease at 6-4 also walked Drew Gilbert leading off the 6th and Rafael Devers with 1 out in the 7th, but breezed through a 1-2-3 8th with Tyler Rogers warming up, earning a shot at the 9th despite having thrown 115 pitches. Home runs by Vlad Guerrero Jr., his 5th, and George Springer, his 9th, added 3 runs to the Toronto total on top of the 9th, giving Cease a long rest before continuing his quest. Attempting to match the feat of Dave Stieb in September of 1990, the only previous no-hitter in Blue Jays history, Cease went one-on-one on Heliot Ramos before the Giants outfielder lined a fastball up in the middle, and Ramos had struck out his previous 3 times. Cease was pulled at that point, having walked 3 and recorded his 6th double-digit strikeout performance of the season. No opponent has ever pitched a no-hitter in the 27-year history of the Oracle Park. Rogers retired all 3 men he faced after taking over for Cease, wrapping up the Toronto's 6th shutout of the season.
Well, a couple of things that are obvious if you know the game well enough. 115 pitches is a lot of pitches these days.
Yes, it is.
If it hadn't been for the fact that he had a no-hitter going, they'd have pulled him sooner. But the game turned out. And for the record, Oracle Park, that's the San Francisco Giants' home stadium. Just like to clarify things like that. Well, Mark Gleason of Reuters says Belgium goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois believes his country can create a surprise at the World Cup and upset Spain in this afternoon's quarterfinal. That's on Channel 29 at 3 o'clock this afternoon, by the way. That's after finally beginning to show some form. The headline says, Belgium confident entering showdown with France. I don't know where that writer got that headline. The headline writer didn't read the article. It's not France, it's Spain. Everyone on our team realizes it's possible. I think we have a strong squad with qualities that Spain will have to take into account, he told reporters ahead of training on Wednesday. There are surprises in every tournament. The Champions League, the Europa League, the World Cup, there are always surprises, and I think we can be one of them. Eliminating the European champions would obviously be a huge upset. The confidence is there, he said, after a 4-1 victory over co-host United States on Monday in Seattle. Belgium bumbled through the group phase, eventually topping the standings after beating New Zealand's 5-1 in their last fixture after being held by Egypt and Iran. They then scraped by Senegal, coming back from 2 goals down with 5 minutes left to take the game to extra time and then win 3-2 with a last gasp penalty. People were disappointed in us, but we've set that right. We're getting better and better. Well, they got awfully good Monday night against the U.S. They played a flawless
they sure
game.
Did.
They were all over the place. People were disappointed in us, but we set that right. We're getting better and better. Spain is the favorite, of course. They're excellent in possession. And when they lose the ball, they press quickly. That's where the key lies, knowing how to quickly exploit the space behind their defense. Spain's substitute, Mikel Merino, earned them a 1-0 last 16 win when he scored against Portugal in the 91st minute on Monday. I think the goal against Portugal highlights their strength, added Courtois. We know Lamine Yamal is incredibly talented in one-on-one situations. He's fast and agile and can beat 2 players if necessary. Courtois, rated among the best keepers in world football, knows all about the Spanish threat, having played at Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. I've lived in Spain for 11 years. It's a long time, of course. Life runs on a slightly later schedule there, and the weather is better, but ultimately I remain Belgian. Spain is my second home, though, and I'll probably keep living there after my career ends. I also have 2 children who are naturally more Spanish than Belgian, but at the end of the day, tomorrow's match is all about Belgium, he said.
Well,
We'll see. I'll be watching that match this afternoon.
I haven't decided what I'm going to do this afternoon yet. But now we're going to, well, first of all, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara View Radio reading service, and it's 31 minutes past the hour, and the air conditioning went off again. I'm freezing over here. And we're going to move on to advice from our Eric Thomas, asking Eric more problems for him to solve. Dear Eric, I recently discovered that my younger brother, age 72, has been taking advantage of my elderly uncle, age 92. Wow. Who has dementia. My cousin, who thankfully has power of attorney, uncovered checks made out to my brother. He initially denied the checks, but when confronted with the evidence, he rationalized into claiming the money was owed to him, which is untrue. Interestingly, he behaves similarly with my aging parents 40 years ago. At this point, I've severed ties with him, but part of me would like to hear his explanation. I do not think talking with him would yield any satisfactory conclusion. Your thoughts? It's signed, the Bewildered Brother. Wow, I thought my family was dysfunctional. Dear brother, I agree with you. You probably won't get what you want from this explanation. Indeed, he's already offered an explanation. That money was owed and that wasn't satisfactory. He has either convinced himself of a story that isn't true or he's committed to lying. Either way, he hasn't shown evidence that he's in a position to help you close the book on this. It sounds like what you want is for him to give you a reason for his behavior, but even that might not suffice. If he has a pattern of this kind of financial elder abuse, it's doubtful that any reason for his alleged crimes would be good enough. Because frankly, there's no good reason. Even if he's suffering from a psychological problem and acting out because of it, knowing this may still not give you the peace you seek. At a deeper level, you may be wanting something to prove to you that your brother isn't who he appears to be. He may be many things, some of them quite good. But this is clearly a line in the sand for you. Until he takes responsibility, apologizes, and makes amends, severing contact may be the best option. You might consider writing to him to express your dismay and asking for an apology, and your cousin can pursue legal avenues for restitution, but giving him more space to spin a yarn doesn't serve you. Good grief. Dear Eric, I'm writing about your response to Befuddled and Injured, who wrote in regarding his response to a salesperson who asked him what he did to his broken arm. I've had too many shoulder surgeries to count, and I've had my arm in a sling too many days. My shoulder surgeon gave me a wonderful response to people, many of them strangers, who asked me what I do with my arm. The physician advised responding by saying, "Why do you ask?" The response tells you if they care about you or are just simply being nosy. Then you can choose to respond. It shuts the nosy people up. Asked, and answered is a signature. And he answers, Dear Asked, I found this very interesting. At first, I thought it might be a little brusque, but ultimately it's just an innocent question. Often people are asking out of curiosity rather than concern, which is fine, but it doesn't require a response. And our last letter, Dear Eric, in a recent letter from Angry DIL, his daughter-in-law, the letter writer was complaining about the cost of keeping her 90-year-old mother-in-law in a senior facility. She wrote, During this time I found that the normally excellent Medicare she has yearly been advised to sign up for has changed. Some slick salesperson sold her another plan and she was cut off from rehab care. This illustrates a common confusion between Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans. Medicare is a government program and covers what it covers for all participants at any doctor or hospital or provider anywhere in the U.S. that accepts Medicare. There is only one Medicare. Medicare Advantage is a program that takes the money that would have been spent on you by Medicare and gives it to private insurance companies that essentially give you private insurance coverage, often HMO or PPO. These plans have different benefits and rates, and like non-Medicare insurance plans can require prior authorization or just flat-out deny you coverage. Medicare cannot. The bottom line is that people need to be clear when they are on Medicare, a government-run single-payer system, and when they have signed up for a Medicare Advantage plan, which is run by insurance companies. And it's signed Plan Clarity. And he answers, Dear Plan, this is a helpful distinction. One additional thought on this letter, the writer may want to speak to an elder law attorney or advocate about options available to her mother-in-law. As the original letter noted, the daughter-in-law and son are paying quite a lot of money for the mother's care because the mother doesn't have the funds. But there are other options available for getting her the care she needs with consideration for her financial position.
Mm-hmm.
I get more of those letters in the mail all the time, and I just bought myself a brand new shredder.
There you go.
I love it. It's great.
Nothing beats a brand new shredder.
A micro shredder. Cuts them so tiny, you have a good time putting them back together.
Oh, my. Okay, I'm going to find my way here. It will help if I pick up the correct section of the paper. New attacks show that Trump cannot put Iran war behind him. This is from Washington, Matt Spelnick of Reuters. President Trump's struggle to extricate himself from the unpopular Iran war has hit a new roadblock with the latest exchange of attacks between the two sides, leaving him with few good options and a faltering ceasefire. Trump declared that an interim agreement to end the conflict was over and ordered fresh strikes on Wednesday after Iran targeted U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait, following the U.S. bombing of Iranian targets in response to attacks on tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. More than 3 weeks after the signing of a, quoting here, memorandum of understanding to begin a truce between the U.S. and Iran, the flare-up has highlighted the difficulties Trump faces in forging a comprehensive peace deal and a face-saving exit from the war. His choices are limited and mostly bad, analysts say. Any heavy escalation beyond the tit-for-tat strikes could risk a return to full-fledged war, even though Trump insisted on Wednesday that the latest events would end very quickly as global prices spiked around 7%. However, backing down in the face of Iranian defiance could add to Tehran's sense that it can assert leverage over the world's most important oil shipping channel anytime it sees fit. Trump may be hoping that he can bomb Iran back to the negotiating table for talks about the fate of its nuclear program, which he said is his main war objective, but most experts see little sign that Tehran will make the kind of deep concessions he is seeking. Trump has put himself in a box, said Aaron David Miller, a former Middle East negotiator for Democratic and Republican administrations. Whether through military or diplomatic means, he doesn't look likely to gain much from Iran. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Trump's pursuit of an exit plan has come as he faces pressure to permanently end a war that has killed thousands, inflicted economic pain at home, and driven down his approval ratings just months ahead of November's midterm elections. A June 23 Reuters' Ipsos poll showed Trump's approval rating falling to 34%, returning to the lowest level of his second term and dimming his Republican chances of retaining control of Congress. The latest attacks, which overshadowed a NATO summit that Trump attended this week in Turkey, dented hopes of turning the memorandum signed on June 17th into a final peace deal to end the war, which began with U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on February 28th. Most analysts are skeptical the two sides can craft a comprehensive settlement within the 60-day negotiating window laid out in the document. It kicked the hardest issues down the road to on-again, off-again discussions that have made little, if any, progress, and the next round of talks remains uncertain. Iran, which has suffered heavy damage to its economy and military capabilities, also faces mounting pressure after Washington revoked a waiver allowing Tehran to sell oil internationally, undoing one of its biggest gains under the interim agreement. Even so, its hardline rulers appear willing to withstand further blows, and some analysts suggested this week's strikes by both sides may have been aimed at staking out positions for future negotiations. Jonathan Panikoff, a former deputy U.S. National Intelligence Officer for the Middle East, said this pattern was likely to continue for the foreseeable future. The situation is not going to revert to full-scale war, said Panikoff, now at the Atlantic Council think tank in Washington. But the default setting is now managed instability. I'm going to say that again. The default setting is now managed instability, recurring violence with no permanent off-ramp. Trump, who campaigned for a second term on promises to avoid foreign interventions and focus on American economic concerns, has framed the interim agreement as a resounding U.S. victory, even as Iran has made similar claims. Still, most analysts agree that Trump, who once demanded Iran's unconditional surrender, has been stymied on many of his oft-shifting goals for the war. At the root of the latest outbreak of hostilities are differing interpretations of what preliminary deal means for control of the Strait of Hormuz, where Iran showed its ability during the war to choke off 1/5 of the world's oil shipments. Iran sees itself having a future role in managing the waterway, possibly even charging for fees or tolls, while Trump and Gulf allies insist on a return to free and safe passage. The Iranians have judged that Trump doesn't want to get sucked into an open-ended war, and the Gulf is desperate for normalcy, said John Alderman of the Center for Strategic and International Studies think tank in Washington. Their bet is that Trump will fight for a few days and the Gulf Arab states will push for him to stop. The looming U.S. midterms and concerns that high gasoline prices driven by the war could turn voters against his Republican Party, also widely seen as a pressure point for Trump. Haunted by former U.S. President Hoover's failed economic stewardship, Trump knows he needs to focus on the economy, said Laura Blumenfeld, a Middle East expert at Johns Hopkins University, referring to Trump's assertion that by continuing the war, he would risk becoming like the president who governed at the start of the Great Depression. Time will tell.
Yes, it will. And the Democratic infighting puts the party's midterm targets squarely at risk. This is Washington News from Nancy Cook. With President Trump and Republicans on the defensive over the cost of groceries, gasoline, housing, and health care, Democrats expected to spend the summer building momentum ahead of the midterm elections. Instead, persistent infighting between different factions of the Democrats from Maine to Colorado threatens to drown out the party's messaging and undermine its potential success in November, including a shot at retaking the Senate. The crisis is playing out in real time in Maine, where Senate candidate Graham Plattner has now sought a say in how he's replaced on the ballot following a sexual assault allegation, which he has repeatedly denied. Plattner said Wednesday he's suspending his campaign and moving to withdraw from the race. He said his team won the primary the right way, but suggested he was a victim of an effort to get him off the ballot and said voters who chose him deserve a voice in picking a successor. Now the ball is in the court of the Democratic establishment, Plattner said in an 11-minute video on X. My name might be on the ballot right now, but that ballot belongs to the people of Maine. Plattner's rise was bolstered by the progressive wing of the party, which had been wowed by the Oysterman's plain-spoken persona in a matchup against incumbent Sue Collins, a Republican. Even as Maine's Democratic Party moved to outline a transparent process to choose a successor, Plattner's campaign team sought to mobilize supporters to ensure that a more moderate candidate isn't tapped to replace him. The main thing is a mess, said Cornell Belcher, a Democratic strategist, but the battle lines aren't limited to Maine. Over the past month, the strains between the progressive and moderate wings of the Democratic Party have only grown after Democratic Socialist-backed candidates prevailed in a series of primary races. There's a strong anti-establishment, reformist, populist mood in the country. I don't think it's limited to Democrats. I see it among independents, says David Axelrod, a former top advisor to President Barack Obama. The anti-establishment mood was showcased in the recent Democrat primaries in Colorado, where first-time politician and Democratic Socialists of America candidate Melat Kiros beat longtime incumbent Representative Diane DeGette in a primary upset. Is also rearing its head in Michigan, a swing state Trump carried in 2016 and 2024. Representative Haley Stevens, backed by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York, is running for Senate seat against former public health official Abdul El-Sayed, who counts on support from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, and other progressives. On Tuesday, Stevens and El-Sayed faced off in a primary debate in which they argued over Americans' relationship with Israel and the future of the Department of Homeland Security, issues that essentially serve as litmus tests among the different Democratic Party factions. The two are vying to ensure the seat now held by retiring Senator Gary Stevens stays in Democratic hands. Republicans, meanwhile, have largely rallied around Representative Mike Rogers, a well-known lawmaker with national security credentials. In that race and across the country, Democratic Party moderates worry that more leftist candidates who win in the primaries won't be palatable to the broader group of voters who take part in the general election. Trump and GOP officials have already started calling those candidates communists who threaten America. It is healthy for parties to have these debates, said Matt Bennett, the top official in the centrist think tank Third Way. We do worry the DSA is seeking not just to move the party to the left, but that it is a faction like the Tea Party that was fundamentally altered what the Republicans are. That is a long-term potential problem for Democrats. With polls showing continuing voter dissatisfaction over Trump's handling of the economy and Iran war, the Democrats still have advantages. And despite a year of redistricting and Supreme Court decisions related to voting that have generally favored Republicans, Democrats are still favored to retake the House of Representatives in November. The Senate, where Democrats need a net gain of 4 seats, has always been a tougher hill for Democrats to climb. But almost any path to majority there includes flipping Maine's Senate seat. Looming over the state and the Democratic Party as a whole is a specter of July of 2024. That's when the party leadership and donor class pushed President Joe Biden to drop out of the race following his dismal debate performance, and he controversially tapped Vice President Kamala Harris as his successor without any opportunity for voters to weigh in on the process. Maine progressives don't want that same type of coronation to happen again. I admire Maine Democratic Party's stated objectives of an open, transparent, and legitimate process, and I'm glad they're doing due diligence to have a plan, but I question them keeping the plan a secret till Plattner leaves, said Adam Green, co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. The party on Wednesday said that more than 100 state committee members voted to hold a nominating convention to choose a new nominee. Under Maine law, the party has to name a replacement for Plattner by July 27th. Infighting between the party's progressive and moderate wings had been going on since at least the 2016 presidential primaries, when Hillary took longer than anyone expected to defeat Senator Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont, and a progressive icon. The 2020 presidential race was crowded with multiple candidates, and a moderate Biden emerged from the pack as a consensus pick amid the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, progressives once again trying to flex its power by fielding new types of candidates like Plattner. But the internal battles risk taking a toll if the candidates who win out in the primaries turns off other party voters or independents. We still think this Maine race is very winnable, and there are very likely multiple candidates who can defeat Susan Collins, said Green to the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. But that will require ultimate Democratic Party unity.
Another article from Reuters, Kashanga Singh, says Smithsonian hits back at White House claims. Smithsonian Institution Secretary Lonnie Bunch said a White House report that accused the institution's National Museum of American History of, quoting here, thinly veiled anti-Americanism, and again quoting, extreme political activism, was an unfair characterization of its work. While there will always be room for improvement, this report is not a fair characterization of the work and totality of the National Museum of American History, Bunch said in a memo to staff on Tuesday. The memo was confirmed to Reuters by the institution on Wednesday and first reported by the Washington Post earlier in the day. Earlier this week, the Organization of American Historians, the country's largest group of scholars of U.S. history, rejected claims made in the 162-page White House report released July 4th. We continued to review the report and its findings carefully, Bunch said. The report by the White House's Domestic Policy Council was titled Saving America's History, How Ideological Capture at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History Erases Our Heritage. President Trump has targeted U.S. and cultural institutions, from museums to monuments to national parks, in a reshaping that he says aims to remove anti-American ideology. Trump's declarations and executive orders have led to his dismantling of slavery exhibits, the restoration of Confederate statues, and other moves that civil rights advocates say could reverse decades of social progress and undermine the acknowledgement of critical phases of American history. Trump signed an executive order last year targeting the Smithsonian and calling for the removal of anti-American ideology from the vast museum and research complex, a premier exhibition space for U.S. history and culture. The thinly veiled anti-Americanism on display at NMAH is merely a symptom of the widespread belief among the Smithsonian leadership that America is, and has been since Columbus first set foot in the New World, a fundamentally oppressive nation, the White House report said. The report alleged that what it called the museum's ideological capture has moved it toward an extreme political activism. The Organization of American Historians said in response to the report, in another example of executive branch overreach, the White House is seeking to coerce Smithsonian leadership to shape its presentation of U.S. history so that it serves the administration's political agenda, part of an ongoing and multi-pronged assault by the Trump administration against accurate and evidence-based history in American public life. The White House launched an internal review of some Smithsonian museums last year, and Trump said the institution would face the same process as universities whose funding came under threat for policies that displeased the administration. 180-year-old Smithsonian, which includes 21 museums and galleries and the National Zoo, receives most of its budget from Congress, but is independent of the government in decision-making.
Oh. And on to national news. Justice Department warns states about non-citizen voters. This is from Andrew Goodsword of Reuters. The Department of Justice has sent letters to all 50 states warning that the election officials could face criminal charges for allowing non-citizens to remain on their lists of eligible voters. The letters sent on Tuesday are the latest attempt by Republican President Trump's administration to pressure states ahead of November's midterm elections, which will decide control of Congress. The letters sent by Harmeet Dillon, the head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, warned that state election officials can be charged under several federal laws designed to safeguard U.S. elections and bar non-citizens from casting ballots. Any election officers, including the chief election officer of the state, who knowingly retains non-citizens on the state's SVRL, that's a state voter registration list, or facilitates non-citizens in receiving and casting ballots, could be subject to criminal liability, Dillon wrote in one letter, which was seen by Reuters. The Trump administration has attempted a series of maneuvers to take greater control of elections, which are administered by states under the Constitution. Trump and his allies have long claimed that people living illegal in the United States pose a threat to election security, though several studies have found that voting by non-U.S. citizens, is rare. The Trump Justice Department has lost a series of lawsuits seeking to obtain non-public voter data from states as part of what the DOJ has described as an effort to ensure ineligible voters do not remain on voter rolls. The letters from Dillon show the DOJ's interest in elevating the issue despite his courtroom setbacks and warn of potential criminal charges against election officials ahead of hotly contested congressional elections. The department sent these letters to all 50 states and the District of Columbia asking for voluntary compliance in a timely manner with their obligations under federal law to ensure only citizens vote in federal elections, a Justice Department spokesperson said in a statement. And several Democratic state election officials condemned the warnings. Angela Benander, a spokesperson for the Michigan Secretary of State's office, said the state has already taken extensive efforts to ensure only eligible voters can vote.
Time to wrap up. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, July 10th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. We have a plethora of amusing comic strips today. I like the Zitz one. Jeremy, you need to mow the lawn. I'd like to, Dad, but our gas-powered mower will increase my carbon footprint and my morals simply won't allow it. And his dad's reply, didn't you just drive your van to the mailbox? To which Jeremy replies, my morals are task-specific.
That's great.
Uh-huh. And my favorite of the day is actually Break of Day. It has a fork sitting behind a computer terminal at a desk saying, Craig, saying to this pair of chopsticks, Craig, there have been complaints that you're difficult to work with. Well, if you have any need for further information, give us a call at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
JJ Patek
and Don Williams. Thanks for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability